Welcome to What's the Score, a series solely dedicated to the support of Central Florida's small business and entrepreneurs. Donated as a community service by AM 660 The Answer and Salem Communications. Now, here's Christopher Hart and Rich Jaeckle.
Welcome to What's the Score 2015 version. Hi, folks. Here we go. Get ready because we got another bang-up show lined up for you. I am Christopher Hart of the American Adversaries Radio Show, and I'm joined today by my dear friend, and I'm glad to have him back in the saddle, Rich Jaeckle of Score. Rich, Happy New Year to you.
Well, ho, 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 Christopher. Or wait a minute, was that a couple weeks ago? I forget now. The New Year, you know?
Yep. It's
killed off a lot of brain cells.
No, I bet that's true. All right, so folks, welcome to the show. As I said, you have tuned into What's the Score. If you've never heard the show before, this is the show that's designed to help you come up with that winning combination for your business. Score, of course, is the 51-year-old organization now.
51.
That pairs up mentors, successful business people. Used to be just retired, but now it's retired and active business people with up-and-coming business people out there, entrepreneurs who are either just getting started out or have been in business for a while and are looking for that extra little oomph to help them make bigger earnings. That's where Score comes in. And it's free, right, Rich?
It's absolutely free. And, you know, it's almost as old as I am.
Well,
with this 2015 coming up here,
fuzzy math of yours, I guess. Yeah,
fuzzy math.
There you go. The best part about Score Orlando is that they have a local office. And it's located in the Entrepreneurial Center, which is in the Fashion Square Mall, located between Penny's and Sears. And they have a phone number there. You can call and make an appointment. Of course, you can walk in Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. But if you'd like to call them over there, 407-420-4844 is the number of the Entrepreneurial Center, where you will find Score Orlando, along with dozens of other organizations like Rich.
Yeah, like our guest and I were just talking a little bit ago about him being a member of a member of Hispanic Business Chamber of Commerce,
which is also located at the Entrepreneurial Center over there. By the way, scoreorlando.org is the website for the local Score Orlando office, scoreorlando.org. And they have of course, it's a national organization, so they have a national website, too, which is simply score.org. And you'll find a lot of information at both of those websites, including information having to do with seminars. And these seminars are great. They are put on regularly over at Score Orlando. And let's see, the next one that's a free one comes up on January the 31st, a Saturday at 9:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., entitled, This is the Beginning One. Your business idea,
there you go,
Score.
Thank you, in remembrance of Paul.
Yeah, Paul, by the way, folks, Paul McNally's not with us today. He is slammed, and he'll be now appearing with us periodically, but not on a regular basis. We're going to miss Paul, but Rich is here, and I'm here, and you're here, so that's the three ingredients that we need. And our guest, who we're going to get here in just a moment. Score your business, your business idea, how Score can help. This is a free seminar. The next one's going to be January 31st, Saturday morning, 9:30 to 12:30 at the Entrepreneur Center. You don't need to make reservations. You can just show up. And please tell them that you heard about it on our show. Now, this seminar in particular is about, Rich just gave me a great new list of seminars here. This is for people who have limited experience in starting a new business. This is for people who are just starting out, know very little about business and know nothing about Score. This is sort of an introduction seminar. The seminar is designed to guide you through the steps necessary for starting a business, including legal business entities, licenses, taxes, insurance, some of the things that every business has to deal with, and explains about business plans and shows you how to collect information and research that you need to do your homework. Right, Rich?
Yeah, absolutely. We got guests in all the time, our clients, and that will come in and say, look, I want to start a business. I don't know what you guys can do for me.
Right.
Where do you come into play here? I mean, do you lend money? No, we don't lend money. But what do you do? And so we'll have to explain to them in about 2 minutes exactly what's in the seminar in about 2 hours. Right. So there's a lot of information in these seminars that are really valuable to our clients.
And you can find these seminars listed at scoreorlando.org, so please go there and do check them out. You know, we had a pretty good year in 2014 there, Rich. You know, we did 20 shows. And
we did?
Well, we did 18 shows. We had 2 replays over the holiday weekend. With,
I don't remember anything after the brewery.
Nate Friends and Rebecca Rhodes were our replay shows.
They were good.
And just before then, we had Walter Briggs, the WB brand cigars. And, of course, he has the charitable organization for his wife. And we had a lot of great guests, including Theo Hollerback of Willow Tree Cafe up there in Sanford, and Joshua Johnson, and he's with Learn Everywhere. Great, just a lot of great guests.
Dr. Pete over there at Rollins College.
That's right. And we intend to have a lot of great guests again this year. That's where we're starting off right now. And today's guest is Darren Wendroff. And Darren, thank you for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks so much. Excited to be here.
I appreciate you coming in. And you have started a business called CareSpotter.
Yes, CareSpotter. It's a website that connects families with senior caregivers. It's an eHarmony for caregivers. So a lot of us
like that.
Yes,
a
lot of us
eHarmony.
You know, a lot of us have aging parents, aging grandparents, and we become caregivers, and we need to find ways to take care of them, to better help them live in the home, age in place. So a lot of times people will hire professional caregivers to come in and help them with daily activities, to help them run errands, to do different things, to help cook, clean around the house. So in the past, what would happen is a family might go through an agency, and the agency would choose the caregiver for them. But you don't really know who the caregiver is before they arrive at your home. You're not able to choose your caregiver. And also, it's kind of expensive. It's $20 to $30 an hour. So what we created is a way for families and caregivers to connect directly. It's a website where caregivers create professional profiles, like LinkedIn-style profiles, but they're very personal to the caregivers. And then families can search using more than 150 search criteria, such as language, experience with a medical condition. They can find the perfect caregiver for their loved one.
All right, that's great. And we're going to be talking a lot more about your organization toward the second half of the show. But you are a pretty distinguished person in the history of Score Orlando anyway, because
that's right.
At last year's BizFest, you won the contest of, what was it called? Pitch Fest.
Yeah.
First of all, Rich, explain what Pitch Fest was.
Well, I will, but I wanted to ask you for his card because I'm thinking about getting myself a caregiver.
You're still a young man. Still a young man.
There you go. Well, he's thinking ahead.
Not about the age thing.
He's thinking ahead.
Exactly.
But first,
Pitch Fest was and will be again, since it's going to be a continuing thing from year to year, sponsored by Score, is much the same as Shark Tank. You come in, you pitch your idea to a group, a panel of prominent business people from Orlando area, and they, in turn, will say, yes, we would be willing to give you money in your business. And that's what you got, didn't it?
Yeah, it was a super exciting event. I mean, to have that opportunity to pitch like that in front of very experienced business owners and also just a business organization in Orlando was great. Now,
this was at BizFest last year.
BizFest, right. It was our 50th anniversary festival.
And when is BizFest going to be this year?
It's going to be in May again.
All right, and it'll be free, and it'll be
free
at the Fashion Square.
Right, and there'll be many vendors there. That are community service vendors that are providing services for you, our audience out there, free of charge. So there's Hispanic Business Initiative Fund, Small Business Development Center. All these things will have paid tables there.
Darren, had you ever had any dealings with Score before, or did you go because it was the BizFest?
Yeah, we've worked with Score in the past. Before I started CareSpotter, my brother and I owned an accounting firm, and we had worked with Score in Arlington, Virginia.
I see.
So we were very aware of Score. And also, when we were in Startup Weekend, it was one of the first events we were in. One of the Score advisors, Maria Rodriguez, she had helped us out at that event as well.
How did you originally find out about Score?
You know, I don't know. I think it's one of those things that you just, when you're in business, you just kind of hear about. It's a resource, and we would recommend it when we were in accounting. We'd recommend it to our clients that might be looking for advisors or just economic, and it's free, so economical resources to to just help them kind of understand their business better and understand how to start their business and manage it and grow from there.
So, excuse me, Rich, but not only did you use SCORE for your own business, but in your business as accounting, you were dealing with a lot of other businesses. So you referred those businesses to SCORE as well.
Oh, yeah. It's a great resource. It's a great national resource.
And it's priced right.
Yeah. You can't be free. It's hard to be free.
Well, and so you won the Pitch Fest at BizFest. And did you actually win money?
Yes. I don't recall exactly how much it was. I think it might have been about $3,000.
Okay.
But for a small business, a startup, that's a lot of money.
That can be huge.
It was great for us, yeah.
And is he disqualified from going back and winning it again, Rich?
I was just wondering the whole thing. You now, as a actual participant in the Pitch Fest, what actually sold the idea? Was it the idea itself or your ability to sell that idea? What do you think?
I think it was a little bit of both. I think, number one, caregiving is something that affects everybody, and it's affected everybody since the beginning of time, since we've been living in communities. So I think everybody understood what we were doing. You kind of almost immediately get it, especially if you were a caregiver. But also, I was a caregiver, and I'm extremely passionate about caregiving and what we do. So I don't know. I mean, sometimes I guess that came out. I guess that came out in the presentation. So I think it was a little bit of both.
Well, what's interesting about this is that you have taken a need, as you said, that's always there. So if you want to look at it in a business sense, there's this market that's always going to be there. And you have added a twist to it in order to turn it into a business, and in the process, making it easier for people to get the caregiver. So it's not like you're providing something new. You're providing a more efficient way for people to get that service. Is that it in a nutshell?
Yes, completely. We're taking a process that was very complicated and very stressful, and we're making it extremely streamlined by showing you the caregivers before you start looking for them and creating tools so you can help find the right caregiver.
Yeah, the thing I really like about this in our preliminary discussions here was the fact that you choose. You actually choose who you want. With another service, you are getting somebody that's appointed to you. In this particular case, it's your choice.
Okay, we're going to have to pick this up on the other side of the break. And, folks, you are listening to What's the Score? We would love to hear your comments about the show, your questions, your suggestions. You can send them to us at score@nationalec.org. That's score@nationalec.org. And don't forget, you can find out more about SCORE. You can find out all about the seminars. You can find out about BizFest and PitchFest at scoreorlando.org. And don't forget, January 31st is the next free seminar. It'll be a Saturday morning starting at 9:30, entitled "You, Your Business Idea, How SCORE Can Help." Please come and say you heard about it on the radio. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back to What's the Score, the show designed to help you come up with that winning combination for your business. I am Christopher Hart, along with Rich. We're here today with Darren Wendroff, and he's got a great business. It's called CareSpotter, and at some point in all of our lives, either we or someone that we love is going to need care that we probably can't provide for ourselves or for them. And that's where CareSpotter comes in. And it's a great business idea, but one thing that Darren pointed out in the last segment was, and should be obvious, is that this is a need that is always going to be there. And that's one thing that helps them sell it, because it connects with everyone realizes and has probably already experienced this situation where they needed a caregiver or someone in their family did. So it's a great, business that shows that you don't always have to have a brand new idea or a brand new product or a brand new service. You can take a product or a service that is already being offered. You can somehow, I don't want to say reinvent the mousetrap, but make it better. And then you have already a built-in market. And that, in essence, is what you have done, Darren, is it not?
Yeah. It's exactly it. What happened was, when I started CareSpotter, I had known what it meant to be a caregiver. and how to finding caregivers.
Right.
And then we were later on, I was reading about how caregivers are the number one needed profession in the country. It's the top, most demanded job in the country today. And I was thinking to myself, well, how do families really find caregivers? And I started researching that, and there's been articles on that. And families would use their word of mouth network, or they'd go through agencies, or they'd use websites like Craigslist. And I thought technology can really create a better way to do this. We can use design and we can use technology to create a way for the caregivers to have profiles, and that's what families are looking for when they're looking for a caregiver. They're looking for an exact person. So that's what we tried to do. That was the initial idea. From there, we've grown from there, and we've learned a lot. But that was the initial idea of creating profiles for the caregivers, which didn't really exist before.
The good thing about that, business-wise, nobody gets out of here alive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So whether you like it or not, you're going to need something down the road. Nobody gets out of here. So you're in a business that's self-fulfilling. It just keeps going.
Well, we're not worried so much about getting out of here. We're worried about the drive up to there.
Yeah,
so we try to make that drive as more comfortable as possible.
There you go.
But Darren, what you've also pointed out is that, for instance, you said you were a caregiver, so you obviously encountered the difficulties of finding someone that you could trust, someone that you would want, with your loved one. So you encountered a problem, sort of in a way, did you not?
Yeah.
But in that problem, you found opportunity.
Well, not immediately, no. No, in the problem, I was a caregiver. Right. I was not thinking about a business at all in any way. It was only until later when I started learning about the issues of caregivers and the caregivers themselves and families needing caregivers and finding out what a huge issue this was, that I realized there has to be a better solution, because when we needed it, the solution didn't exist.
And that's the entrepreneurial spirit, okay, is that you see something that could be done better, or it was a problem. And in that solution to the problem lies the opportunity. And as you said, you weren't looking for a business opportunity, but it presented you. It presented itself to you, I should say. And you, instead of just, sloughing off and saying, well, that's just the way it is, and, in this lousy healthcare system, or however you would want to, say it, and then just go along without your life, assuming that nothing could have ever been done about it, you did something about it.
He recognized the opportunity.
Well, he recognized that something could be done better.
Right.
And in that was the opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to say. It's to folks out there, when you'll come across all kinds of little hurdles and obstacles in your life, like what Darren did as a personal caregiver. And you will find that there's not what you need in the marketplace. That's an opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
Figure out how to fill that need, because if you have it, I guarantee you somebody else is going to have it too. So that's where innovation, that's where invention, that's where new products and services like CareSpotter come from. It's everyday problems in life.
Yeah, and they get enhanced, and they get better and better. Well, you had to use it for your mother, right? I had to use it for my mother. Would you have used this service?
If I'd have known they'd have been around, it sure would have.
You're darn right, I would have. Absolutely.
And so that's what makes capitalism great, is that we have the freedom and the ability to do that sort of thing. But now, obviously, it couldn't have been, just rags to riches overnight. Yeah. What were some of the hurdles you had to overcome?
Well, there's still not riches, but the hurdles have been tremendous. I think when people look at startups, they think, oh, they create this great innovation and it's done. And that's so far from the truth. It's been tremendous. I mean, when you're creating a startup, which is what we created, a technology startup, we're creating something that didn't exist. So if you open up an accounting firms already exist. You just have to follow the template. If you start a law firm. But starting a startup, that thing that we created didn't exist. So we had to create the thing that didn't exist and then understand how to better design that thing for our clients, better design that thing for customers, and then also how to use that thing to generate revenue, because as a business, you have to be sustainable. If you don't generate revenue, you won't be sustainable. So that's a key thing as well, how to monetize this product that we've created.
And is that where SCORE came in? Did they help you with? How far along, let me put it this way, how far along were you when you went to the BizFest and gave the pitch?
Oh, we were already a developed site by then.
Okay.
Our contact with SCORE came super early. We were in an event called Startup Weekend, which is a wonderful event.
Oh, yeah,
it's a tremendous event.
Now, hold on a second. What is Startup Weekend, Rich?
Go ahead.
Yeah, Startup Weekend.
You attended it.
Yeah, Startup Weekend is a 3-day event where kind of hard to describe. It's just a group of designers, marketers, developers, programmers. We all get together and we pitch business ideas, startups to each other, technical startups, and then everybody in the room votes on different ideas to work on. It's about 100 people, 150 people at a time. Everybody votes on different ideas to work on. And then for that 3 days, you work on that idea. You build the idea, you build the business model, and on the third day, you present the idea to everybody. And then they choose 3 winners. And you present it actually to 3, in our case, we presented to a venture capitalist and 2 other people. I can't remember, they were business people. But you present it to experienced entrepreneurs. And it's a way to validate your idea.
It's actually a good team building experience as well.
Oh, it's tremendous. There's so many things. You could have this whole show on just Startup Weekend. There's so many things that it does.
Now, Startup Weekend, is that an annual event, Rich?
Yeah, it is, but it's not just SCORE. It's also other agencies that are involved with it, right?
Yeah. It actually happens a few times throughout the year.
Okay.
Orlando Tech Association is involved.
Right.
The Chamber of Commerce, SCORE.
Right.
There's a lot of different organizations involved with it.
Can they find out? Can our listeners find out about that at the website?
Absolutely. It's coming up here again, I think in June. I think we just saw an email buzz through that said it's time for Startup Weekend again.
Okay.
Put your name in if you want to volunteer as a counselor and, attendee.
Internal memo.
Yeah.
All right, so scoreorlando.org is where you'll be able to keep up with Startup Weekend. So you went through the stuff with SCORE and the Startup Weekend, the BizFest. What was your biggest hurdle? What would, if somebody else were doing something similar, what would you warn them?
Well, in terms of a warning, that don't spend a lot of money up front. You have to validate the idea. So we do something in the tech field called building an MVP, and an MVP is a minimal viable product. That is, what is the minimum expression of your product that people will actually use?
That's interesting.
And that's very, very important.
I don't believe I've ever heard that term before.
Now, minimal viable product. Say that again. Does it have to do with pricing?
No, what that has to do is with the product itself. So let's say you build something and you don't know if people will use it. So instead, some people will go and spend $100,000 designing and developing that thing and say, here you go. What's the right thing to do is spend as little as possible designing and developing that and saying, will you use this? And sometimes it's an actual product. Sometimes it's just some designs that you show people.
Design?
Yeah, you just have to show people this is what this product does, or this is how it works, and will you use it? And if they will, you know it's a viable product.
So you're presenting the concept.
Yes.
More than the design of the system.
Well, sometimes it's the actual design of the system. Twitter is an example of that. Okay. When Twitter first came out, it was nothing. It was this tiny, people didn't really know how to use Twitter. It didn't have all the features that it has now. It was just almost a text messaging tool. But now Twitter's something totally different. The same thing with Facebook. When Facebook first came out, many people saw the movie. Facebook was just a page that you created a profile on and invited other people. It didn't have all the social aspects of it. So those are examples of the minimal viable product. That's the minimum version of that product. And that's the biggest mistake. I see it all the time that a lot of startup founders and companies, entrepreneurs make is they spend a lot of money up front because they have this vision and this passion, which is great, but they spend too much money and they miss the mark of what the client really wants, and then they have to go spend more money to re-hit that mark.
That's valuable information there. That's a valuable tip.
Yeah, it's saying, like, I'm building the system the way I want to see it, not particularly the way clients want to see it.
Exactly.
So what he's saying is put it out there as a skeleton and then let the clients tell me what they want to see in this system. Is that right?
Yes, that's exactly right.
Okay.
And that's why Startup Weekend is so valuable, because it's fairly cheap. I think it's $99.
Right.
But you're able to present your idea to a group of people. They're able to build it a little bit, and that small group will validate it in a lot of ways.
Wow. Startup Weekend. And once again, folks, you can find out about that and what's coming up in June at scoreorlando.org. And Darren, once you got up and running, were there a lot of legal hurdles in the sense of you're dealing with health care? Mm-hmm. Did you have to deal with any regulatory issues?
Yeah, the legal hurdles weren't that big because we created just a marketplace where families can find caregivers. Similar to Craigslist, if you're looking for an item, you can go on Craigslist and find it. We're just the marketplace. What our biggest challenges were how can we design this to best service the families and the caregivers. So for the families, we learned as we went along, families would find caregivers, but then they wouldn't know where to go from there. So we built an interview process for them, which we helped them with. But it's also a list of interview questions that they should ask the caregiver and what answers they should expect. And then they hired the caregiver, but then they didn't really know how to employ the caregiver. So we built an onboarding checklist and an onboarding kit for them on how to bring the caregiver into your employ. Because families aren't used to being employers. So we learned little by little. And that was the real challenge, is how can we design this complex thing to best fit the needs of families?
Hey, you could have just gone to Angie's List and retrofitted that whole thing into caregiver.
All right. Okay, folks, we got to take another break. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation with Darren Wendroff about CareSpotter and get into more specifics of it and how you can get a hold of them. In the meantime, don't forget radio is still one of the most effective ways to build name recognition, either by advertising and prestige by your own radio show, like this one right here. That's right, folks. If you'd like to explore the world of radio on one of the most powerful AM stations in Central Florida, actually, there's 3 stations here at Salem Communications Orlando, then call the station manager. That's Bill Files. You can reach him at 407-618-1760. You will find out that advertising on radio is remarkably affordable. So call Bill at 407-618-1760. When we come back, we'll have more of What's the Score? Welcome back to What's the Score, folks. Thanks once again for being with us as we enter into 2015. I am Christopher Hart, and along with Rich Jaeckle, we are here today with Darren Wendroff. That's right, of CareSpotter, and I want to get back to him in just a moment. But as we were going into the break there, we were talking about Startup Weekend, and we oftentimes talk on the show about seminars and things. Folks, you can get on the email list and get updates and alerts for things like Startup Weekend. All you got to do is go to scoreorlando.org and become a member. And that's free, too, isn't it, Rich?
That is free. The big F word. Free.
There you go. The big 4-letter F word, free. So that's scoreorlando.org. Become a member, and then you will be on the list to get emails with updates and alerts. So please take advantage of that. That's scoreorlando.org. And Darren is he's a legend over there at Score because he was a part of the Startup Weekend and won the Pitch Fest at Biz Fest, and but it just goes to show you folks the value that you can get out of working with Score, and they certainly have helped Darren along the way. Darren, you were talking about minimal viable product, and that once again is your sort of way to test market your concept or idea by coming up with the smallest version of it, more or less, as possible, to present it to the marketplace, see if the marketplace will buy it at all, and if they do, if they want, tweak it.
Yeah, exactly.
How did you find out about that concept? You said you were in the accounting business before. Had you run into someone who introduced you to that concept?
Yeah, I had never been introduced to that concept. That was during Startup Weekend. That is the main focus of Startup Weekend, is building an MVP. And it's something that I'm part of the Orlando Tech Association, which is a kind of a chamber for tech company startups. And it's something that we talk about. We have a pitch event similar to the Score Pitch Fest. Right. It's something that we talk about as well, is just understanding the importance of that MVP.
Okay. I want to go back a little bit in time and then bring us up to the MVP and then bring us up to today. You said you were a personal caregiver. And tell us a little bit about that experience and how that led you into CareSpotter, because you said it wasn't an immediate thing. It took some germination time, if you will. Yeah.
And this is a very personal story. It's something that's part of the business and why I started CareSpotter, but it's still something that, it's kind of tough to talk about sometimes because it's something I want to keep close to my heart. But my mother had stomach cancer, and she got it out of nowhere. And I was living in D.C. at the time with my brother. We owned an accounting firm. And I immediately came back, and I remember she was in the hospital, and she had been released from the hospital. And that was when I was introduced to the concept of caregiving. I didn't even know what it was. And they said, we asked, well, how, my mom's going to be at home. How can we find her some help for that? Is there a nurse or anything? And they said, well, you can hire a caregiver. And they gave us a list of agencies. But it was just a list. There were no ratings or testimonials. And I asked them, I said, which is the best agency? And they said, well, we can't tell you that. You'll have to call them.
Right.
So I called them up. I asked if I could speak with the caregiver before they sent them to my mom's home, and they couldn't. And I just didn't want to leave that thing, which is so important, letting a stranger choose my mother's caregiver for me.
Very impersonal, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's difficult. It's a business, and they do a great job. Agencies do a great job. But for me personally, my family, we're so hands-on. And, I know that I wanted to hire myself in a way.
So you just weren't comfortable with what the marketplace was offering, which was this sort of sterile, you sort of like a babysitting service where you don't even know the girl down the street. You just call up and they send somebody out, and you don't know who they are, where they came from, basically. You just know that they came from this agency.
Yeah, it was just the unknown. Right. And if they were the wrong person, having to send someone back. So, because when you're in that position, your loved one is so vulnerable. So every wrong glance, it affects you as well. And, you don't want to affect your loved one. So it's a very stressful time.
You're very vulnerable because you got to clean up the issues.
Super vulnerable. Not only that, you just don't want to see your loved one in pain at all. You want to find the right person to help care for them.
Well, at that time, obviously, there was no CareSpotter. What did you do?
Well, I left my company. And took care of my mom. Luckily, my brother and I owned a company, and he was able to take care of it, and I was able to take care of our mother, and she lived in Gainesville, Florida. And this, it's something that I would never have traded for anything in the world to take care of my mother, but I don't know how some people do it because it's a tremendous issue. This happens all the time. People are working, and then they have to care for a loved one. It's just a tremendous. It's pain. It's a tremendous pain.
It certainly is, and it takes a lot of work and dedication on the caregiver's part. And caregivers oftentimes end up needing care themselves.
Yeah,
from the experience, in particular when it's an elderly couple where, say, the husband or the wife has Alzheimer's or dementia or some other debilitating disease, and it's left to the spouse to take care of them.
Yeah, and I just want to clear up one thing. When I said pain, I meant personal pain, emotional pain. Yeah, because it's not a burden. It's an emotional pain because your loved one's in pain. You want to provide the best care.
Right. But it can be very trying for the caregiver.
Yeah, it depends on the relationship, how close they are,
and how long the condition persists.
Yeah. It's a tremendous issue. I read all types of studies on this. Caregivers are 7 times more likely to have, they have 7 more healthcare visits a year due to caregiving. Working caregivers, 1 in every 3 female working caregivers turns down a job promotion. 1 in every 3 caregivers leaves the job force early, quits, retires or quits. So it's a tremendous issue that's affecting a lot of people.
My father went through the same thing before he passed in May, and my wife was the caregiver.
Yeah.
And she was there 5 days a week, 5 or 6 days a week.
Yeah.
I mean, I was eating hot dogs for about 5 months there. So
that's where you got that belly.
That's right. No, that's from the beer.
The beer with the hot dogs. Yeah, right.
Okay.
Okay, so to get back to your story, so you went through this with your mom. Did your mother eventually pass away of the disease?
Yeah, my mom eventually passed away.
Yeah, stomach cancer is one of the most aggressive forms of cancer.
Yeah.
How long did it take before you decided you were going to do something about the situation?
Well, what happened was a couple of months later, so I went, it's a tremendous issue, and I went back, and my brother and I, we went back to the firm, and we went, we were grieving, and about 6 or 7 months later, I left the firm. I sold my partnership back to my brother and said, I just want to try something different, and I just wanted to take a break, really. And I came back to Florida, and I remember it distinctly. I was reading the newspaper, and I read about caregivers. It's the #1 needed job in America today. Not a lot of people know that. I'm sure it's a surprise to a lot of your listeners. It's the #1 needed job, 70% growth demand. And it's because we have this tremendous, rapidly aging population. Every day, more than 10,000 Americans turn 65, the baby boomers. And I thought to myself, I was a caregiver. I needed to find a caregiver, and we need these caregivers, and there's no way to really find them, and the caregivers need to find jobs. So so I thought technology can solve this problem. And there's a lot of issues with caregiving. It's a very complex issue. It's a very personal thing, but one of the things was caregivers, the reason why caregivers are so demanded and we can't find them is caregivers are hardly paid anything, $8 to $9 an hour, and they do tremendously hard work. And I thought, this is something we can solve through technology. Families can find the caregivers. They can pay less because they're paying the caregivers directly. And then the caregivers can make more because they're getting paid directly by the families. So I thought of the idea. I entered Startup Weekend. Luckily, Startup Weekend was a couple weeks away. I entered that, and we validated the idea, and then we went from there.
And your website is carespotter.com. I take it that was one of the first things you did was begin to build a website, and obviously you had to build out the What the technology to put all this together? How did that come together?
Let me tell you something. So that's a really good point you just bring up. So that's a mistake a lot of people make. They think I need to build this website. You don't. You really just need, like what we did, which was so smart, and I got lucky. And we got lucky because we didn't have any money.
Okay.
So I had to think, I can't spend all this money on this site. How can I build the idea and show people? And what I could afford was design. I could design it and show people. And we designed it. We designed the site. We designed how it would look, how the process would work, how the profiles would look. And I remember we had 3 pictures of designs. And we applied for this thing called an accelerator, which is an incubator for tech startups. And we got into a local accelerator called Starter Studio. And then we also got into an international national healthcare accelerator, one of the top in the world, called HealthBox, which is partnered with Florida Blue, the insurance company.
Right.
And you know, it's just a tremendous surprise to me that we got into either of those. But just with those pictures and the idea of how this would work, HealthBox chose us for that accelerator. It was more than 500 people applied, 500 companies, and we were one of 8 companies, and we got investment. And from there, we were able to build the product.
Man,
Wow.
You've had a good role here. I mean, from getting accepted with the accelerator program and then the Pitch Fest and now this.
Well, because it's a
good
great
role.
But it's a great idea.
It is.
It's an absolutely fantastic idea. By
It
the way,
is.
CareSpotter.com, CareSpotter.com is the idea. Okay, so now you have this concept, but now you have to actually put it into physical practice.
Yeah.
How did you go about doing that? I mean, how did you come up with the caregivers and how does that part of it? How did all of that gel?
Logistics. How did you combine them?
It's amazing. You learn little by little. So originally, I would put a job. We would talk to caregiving groups, local support groups, and we'd meet with caregivers, and we'd find out, well, what do you need a caregiver for? So we'd write down their job description, and we would post that job description on Craigslist and Indeed and different sites. And then caregivers would send us their resumes, and then we would call them back and say, hey, we're creating this site. Can you create a profile on this site? And that took forever. That took a long time because we had, it was like we had to get that, then give it to the.
Well, how does anybody know about this?
Yeah.
I mean, that takes a while for you.
Yeah, everything.
Out there, right?
Yeah, it's called a two-sided marketplace. So we have the caregivers and then we have the family. So we have 2 clients in a way.
Right.
So, but to get the caregivers, we need the jobs. So we got a couple families that were looking for caregivers. We made everything free initially, so there wasn't any charge to use CareSpotter. And the families would post the jobs. And what we learned eventually was, well, instead of us having the caregivers send us their resume, we should just have them create a profile on the site, and then we'll call and interview them to vet them and screen them. And that was much more efficient than asking them once we got their resume. So that was something we learned, and that was really the thing that took off for us, because once we figured that out, then the caregivers were creating the profile directly on the site. And you'd think that would be obvious, but it took us a while to learn that.
So you could determine the strengths of these people. Yes, you could determine the strengths or recognize the strengths of these potential caregivers, so you could match that up much better to the family.
Yes.
Than looking at a list of names.
Oh, yes. Well, definitely. In the past, families would just get resumes. But a resume doesn't tell you who a person is. And when you're hiring a caregiver,
Right.
you want to hire the person, not the resume.
Okay. And we're talking with Darren Wendroff of CareSpotter, folks, and you can find him at CareSpotter.com. And you can email him, by the way, at Darren@CareSpotter.com. He is the founder of CareSpotter. As you've heard, it puts people who need caregivers with the caregivers that they need. It's a fantastic idea, and it's just proof that there is opportunity out there always, folks. And he found it in, of the worst of places where his mother had cancer. And so please just be on the lookout and keep listening to SCORE, because you're going to hear great ideas like this, and hopefully it will jog something in your life, in your mind. Okay? So don't go away. We got a lot more to do when we come back. Welcome back to What's the Score, folks? The show designed to help you come up with that winning combination for your business, just like Darren Wendroff has come up with CareSpotter, CareSpotter.com. Before we get back to the conversation with Darren, though, Rich, you said you wanted to wish some people a Happy New Year?
I certainly did. Here, Jeff, take a bow back there, would you please? Thank you very much, Jeff.
You just surprised Jeff.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
That's Jeff Simmons,
And also,
our producer, our show producer.
Also to all the people at Salem Communications for dedicating this community service free of charge for the Central Florida community. We think it's a valuable service that a lot of people can get a lot of things out of, and we appreciate Salem Communications for their valuable contribution to us.
Yeah, thanks to Bill Files, the station manager, and Pete Paquette, the programming director here at Salem Communications. They want to support the entrepreneurial community here in Central Florida. The business community is very important to Salem Communications. So if you want to show them their appreciation, give Bill Files a call. Tell him what you think about the show. You can call him directly at 407-618-1760. If you'd like to talk about advertising, call Bill directly at 407-618-1760. Real quickly, now, the new year has got some new things at SCORE, Rich.
They really do, and I'm not one of them.
That's for sure. But there's some new seminars. There's a lot, of course, the seminars that have been there are still there, but there's some great new seminars that will be available this year, starting in January. For instance, on January 15th, Your Social, Now What? In other words, you went out there.
I love it.
You got hooked up on Google and Facebook and all that stuff. Now what you going to do about it? That's a $10 seminar, folks. That's great. It'll be on January 15th at the Entrepreneur Center at the Fashion Square, starting at 9:30 a.m.
And you know, Chris, these are practical seminars.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
They aren't, taught out of a book.
Yeah.
You walk away with a lot of information, but it's practical information. It's field information that you can use.
Like at the tax boot camp,
there
which you can
go.
use right now because it's tax season again, folks. And that'll be January 17th at 9:30 a.m. And that's tax boot camp. Also, there's a business law seminar, and that's a new one, too. That will be on January the 27th at 6 p.m. And then healthcare reform. Of course, everybody's having to deal with that now, and you'll find that brand new seminar will be offered on January the 29th at 9 a.m. And once again, you can find out about these brand new seminars and the other seminars at scoreorlando.org. Rich.
Yeah, and that healthcare one is a 5-year seminar. So if you're going to sign up for the health care, you got to commit 5 years of your life to hear the whole thing.
And that's because they're still writing it as we speak.
That's it.
All right. Speaking of health care, let's get back to Darren Wendroff of CareSpotter, carespotter.com. And so where are you at today with CareSpotter? I mean, is it national? Can anybody in the country, who needs a caregiver find one in their local area?
Right. So we launched in February last year, 2014, and since our launch, we've helped about 127 families, and we've created more than 135 high-paying care jobs. Usually families are paying between $13 and $15 an hour for the caregiver, and the caregiver is making that much. Families are saving about, I think it's 40 to 50% versus agency fees.
Right.
And we have a redesign coming out in January, later this month. It's going to be able to be national. We're going to have a way that families can automatically request a background check for the caregivers. And we're also doing a special program for workplaces that's going to be a webinar series for workplaces. It's totally free. We made it totally free, and it's totally seamless, very turnkey program for companies to be able to provide a resource to their working staff members who may be caring for a senior loved one as well. And that's launching in February, I think mid-February, with Florida Blue and a company called Axiom Healthcare.
Are they going to give what do you call it? The tests for alcohol or drugs?
Well, I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you about the vetting process. How do you vet the caregivers to find out if they're using drugs themselves, or if they're got a bad reputation or something? How do you find out?
Right. So that's the most important thing, is screening the caregivers. All the caregivers have to had work in assisted living facilities, in hospitals, in home care agencies. So these are already professional caregivers. These are not people that want to get a job in caregiving. They're already professional caregivers. And they already have what's called a level 2 background check, which is a drug. They do drug and alcohol testing, as well as the other things that would be done during a level 1 background check. What we do on top of that is we're able to provide a more up-to-date level 1 background check. And then we also do the screening process of the caregiver in terms of their profile. So you can look at their profile and learn about them. You can get a feel for who they are, and then we guide you through the interview process. Because ultimately, you're the best screener for whether or not this is the right caregiver for your loved one.
Do you seek, give a survey or something to your clients who have hired the caregivers afterwards to, see what their experience was like?
Yeah, so that's another service that we provide is we're coaching them through the process as well. We're always on call that they can call us up or email and families calls up all the time with questions about how do I do this, and they also ask us questions that aren't even related to that caregiving, like do you have an elder care attorney that you can recommend? Yeah, for references and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we're going to grow as well. We're going to bring on a professional geriatric care manager as part of CareSpotter to help coach the families through the process and to keep guiding families through that complicated process.
And you mentioned the legal aspects of this, too, helping families with legal documents. You say you're going to refer them to elderly care attorneys?
Well, we're going to be able to make referrals. We'll help families research that process because that's complex for families as well.
Yeah.
But one legal issue that a feature we'll be adding later on is helping families with the payroll of the caregiver. So right now, families are paying the caregiver directly, but we'll recommend an accounting firm, a payroll company they can use to take care of the caregiver. It's actually a different firm than my brother's firm. It's a firm that specializes in household employees, which caregivers are, nannies are as well. But through technology, one really cool thing that we're going to be releasing later in the year is when the caregiver arrives at the home, we're going to have them clock in through their smartphone, and they'll send the family a text message letting them know that the caregiver is there. And if you have family members in other states or other cities, they'll also get that text message if you want them to. And then when the caregiver leaves, they'll clock out and they'll send the family a text message letting them know the caregiver left. So we're using technology, and then the caregiver can speak what happened that day, the activities of the day, so everybody can be informed on their loved one. So we're really trying to use technology to make this process more personal and keep everyone involved.
Yeah, Chris, I know for myself personally, I would have been a lot more comfortable with an agency or a service like this around now. And what would you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, mentally comfortable that here's a crutch for me.
Right, absolutely. And because you're dealing with loved ones, the trust issue is so very important. And that's what you're providing. You're providing people reassurance. You're providing them good quality care at a good price, but you're also providing that reassurance that they are doing the best for their loved one, because that's the main thing, is that people want to do the best for their loved one. And they always yet have that little doubt in the back of their mind. Had they really done that? And you're offering that. And so not only are you offering care for the person who has the disease, but you're also offering care for the caregiver, the family member, I mean.
That's such a good point. That's such a good point because I always say a great caregiver empowers the entire family, not just the patient. So by you choosing your own caregiver, you have that personal relationship with the caregiver. Yeah. That's what we do. We create the ability for you to have the personal relationship with the caregiver. And then, little things like sometimes families, what we do is very personal, it's customized. So sometimes families just need a caregiver for 4 hours a week. And that's something you can't do through an agency. Or one family, they just hired a caregiver to come in and make their loved one, it was their mother, lunch. So the caregiver comes in about an hour and a half every day and just makes lunch and eats lunch with the mother. Sure. And then that's their job. That's how they work with the family. So we're creating more of a way for you to create that personal connection with the caregiver.
And the customized. It's customized care.
Yeah.
And that's the best health care. It's customized care, not some cookie cutter type stuff.
Yeah, and the interaction from the sounds of what you're saying here between your customer and your caregiver is greatly enhanced. In other words, there's no fumbling around for communications.
Yeah.
Where you can talk and get across your points.
There's no middleman.
Which is,
it's all direct.
It's all direct. And what we see our job is to do is to create ways to screen the caregivers, create ways to guide the families through the process, and to use technology to make the process more personable and more efficient, more seamless. That's what we see as our job.
Awesome.
Is it possible for some families, does insurance at all pick up any of these costs?
Right now, insurance doesn't. Right now, it's direct pay, so you pay the caregiver directly. But a lot of people don't know this. Insurance doesn't really pay for caregiving. It pays for it for a short amount of time.
Right.
But if you need long-term caregiving, it usually comes out of pocket.
That's correct. That's absolutely right.
I didn't know that.
Whether you're on Medicare or Medicaid, it's very temporary, a month.
Yeah.
And then you're on the marketplace. Yeah. So to speak. So CareSpotter, great idea and a great logo. I love it. And go to carespotter.com and check it out. Darren at carespotter.com is where you can email Darren. And once again, it's a great opportunity and it's definitely needed. And that's the best part of all, is that you have filled a need. And in the process, it's going to bring a lot of peace of mind to a lot of people. And, boy, Rich, I can't think of a better business to be in.
What a hole that we needed filled. What a whole gap in the healthcare system.
And
I did not know that it was not covered personally.
And as Darren says, you're right about that. And as Darren says, the need for caregivers is only going to go up.
Yeah.
So if you're out there and you are, inclined to the nursing industry, caregiving may be the way to go. Because you can be an independent operator if you hook up with CareSpotter, and it'll be a very satisfying life.
Yeah, we see it all the time. We see retired nurses. We see healthcare professionals that want to do something on the weekends or during their free time. So we get a lot of caregivers that they're already healthcare professionals that create profiles on the site because they love caring for seniors. It's very rewarding.
And they don't have to work the long hours and stuff, do they?
Well, they do. Caregiving is extremely... Yeah.
No, I mean, they can pick and choose assignments. If somebody says, I need a caregiver for 4 hours a day, they can apply for that versus I need a caregiver 24 hours a day.
Well, no, they're two. So we offer both those types of caregivers.
No, I know that.
Yeah,
but the caregiver themselves.
Once again, though, you can customize your caregiving and your caregiving needs. Well, I wish we had more time, but we're out of time today. Darren Wendroff, thanks again for being with us. Darren, you got a great thing going there, and hats off to you, and please keep it up. I know at some point in the future that need is going to come to my family again, and I'm going to have your card in my wallet when that time rolls around. So God bless you. And folks, if you're out there and you need a caregiver or know someone who does, please contact CareSpotter.com. CareSpotter.com. Whoever that person is will be indebted to you greatly. So please take advantage of that. And please take advantage of SCORE at scoreorlando.org. And don't forget to take advantage of listening to us once again next week. And please tell your friends and family all about What's the Score.
Happy New Year out there.
All right. Bye, everybody.